Good morning, and I welcome all members, officers and members of the public to this meeting of the area constituency of Harrogate and Knaresborough. Right, we'll start off with agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Edward?
No apologies have been received. All members are present except for Councillor Windus, who's not joined us yet, but I'll let you know if I have any apologies or notification from him.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of May. Would anybody? Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Chair. Before we get to the approving of these minutes, I just wanted to point something out, and I've already spoken to the officer involved, so he knows that I'm going to raise this. The minutes, in my opinion, were not complete. They were, let's put it this way, complete in accordance with council practice. However, one item was missing from the minutes. And my concern is that the public, when reading the minutes, will believe that we perhaps ignored this problem. It's further been exacerbated as that item was suggested that it would come back on this particular meeting, and it is not on the agenda. Now, it's not on the agenda for perfectly legitimate reasons. However, the public can't see that. And unless the public understand how to look at the forward plan, which is about item 8 or 9, then they wouldn't understand. And I think we need to put on the agenda in future apologies if items which were suggested for this meeting are not there. In terms of a resolution, perhaps we have to discuss how minutes are taken, not just in this meeting, but in all council meetings. And I know this has been passed back to Daniel Harry. But one of the things that we might want to consider is the recording of this meeting is actually appended to the minutes so that people can go back to that, or as you suggested, Chair, is that actually I'm sure there's some sort of AI type or auto transcript of these that could also be attached to those minutes. So anyway, I'd just like to leave it at that, Chair, and now you can carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward, did you want to?
Yeah, just to say thank you to Councillor Haslam for giving me advance notice of that question. I fully take on board the points that you said about items being missing from the agenda, and we did have a discussion about highlighting areas of the work programme when items are deferred for the benefit of members of the public. So that's something I'll look to include on the future work programme. I'll also pass your comments on about the other technological solutions you mentioned to the working group, and I can follow you back up with that in writing. But just to highlight as well, if there are comments on the minutes or a specific item that you'd like minuted, by all means, flag that up to me either during or after the meeting, and I'm happy to include that if you have a special concern that it's recorded in the minutes. But thank you.
Councillor Aldred.
Yeah, on a similar tangent, and I do agree with Paul. I've raised this from day one of North Yorkshire. I don't think the way we do minutes is particularly good, and I don't think the fact that there is no opportunity to raise or to question something in the minutes. That in a lot of other organisations, you've got items arising from the minutes. Now, I can quite see why we probably don't do that, because we'd be here for another half an hour. But there's some things, and I'll give an example. The examiner's report of the panel on Burnbridge neighbourhood plan, which we looked at, and it's a superb plan last time. But it doesn't, it says it's going forward to a referendum, but there's no feedback on that. And, you know, I think we as councillors, and more importantly, as you've alluded to, members of the public may actually want to know what's happening with that plan. And there's nothing, you know, telling us about it. So I think, could that be added to your list of things to look at, Edward? Whether
yes, by all means, I will do, yeah.
There's some mechanism for just a brief question as to something that came up last time. Not a big debate, but just a factual question. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Haslam.
As an interim suggestion, I chair Transport of Scrutiny of the North, And one of the things that I do as chair is if there's something I particularly want minuted, I ask for it to be minuted, and that might be an action you might consider at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
So taking on board all those points, I'm happy to propose that the previous minutes are an accurate reflection of the meeting.
Do we have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Gibbs. All in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Councillor Lacey.
Item 6 on the agenda includes a report on the potential for a Knaresborough land train. Makes reference to Knaresborough and District Chamber of Trade, of which I am a director, potentially involved in implementing and developing the scheme. I have no pecuniary interest, and I've therefore agreed that I can remain in comment if I feel able and vote on those papers. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
So for items 5 and 6, I am a Knaresborough Town Councillor, so any views that I talk about in this meeting are as a councillor, not on behalf of any other council. Thank you.
Councillor Gosling.
And I need to declare the same interest as Matt, as I'm a town councillor also. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so if we go on to agenda item 4, which is the public questions or statements. If I could ask for the Gia Margolis to read her statement. Oh, is she here today?
Gia Margolis has let me know that she can't actually attend today. So her response will be provided in writing later today. But there is an officer response which has been sent round to members, right, and she'll receive that later today.
Okay. Thank you. So we also have a statement from Hazel Peacock. Hazel, if you'd like to make your statement.
Hopefully, yeah, better. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I have a question for the committee today. At the last meeting of the Harrogate and Knaresborough Area Constituency Committee on the 30th of May, North Yorkshire Highways officers provided a helpful update on the 20-mile-an-hour implementation of South and West Harrogate. We are grateful for this update and thank officers for all the work that they are doing on the 20-mile-an-hour zone project. Following a request from Councillor Paul Haslam during the meeting to look at the possibility of a pilot and traffic modelling of 20 miles an hour on Hookstone Road and Hookstone Drive, there was lengthy and positive debate amongst the committee on the reduction in the maximum speed limits on these roads within the 20-mile-an-hour zone from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. Following a vote, the committee actioned North Yorkshire Highways with producing an options appraisal report on the inclusion of Hookstone Road and Hookstone Drive as 20 miles an hour to be brought to the committee at the September meeting today. Can North Yorkshire Highways officers and the committee provide an update on when the report will be presented to the committee and reasons for delay? We also ask for the minutes of the meeting on the 30th of May to be updated to reflect the debate and actions agreed relating to this item. Finally, are officers able to give an update on the consultation programme for the full 20-mile-an-hour zone, including the consultation done earlier this summer on Panelash Road and Green Lane traffic calming? Many thanks to North Yorkshire Highways and committee members for their assistance and ongoing support on this project. It is greatly appreciated. And it's from me, Dr. Jenny Marks and Ruth Lilly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Edward, have you got a response?
I do have a response which has been provided from Heather Yendall, Improvement Manager from Highways and Transportation. She's not able to be here today, so I'll read that response out to you, but it will be provided again in writing later today. Officers will be presenting a report to November's area committee meeting regarding the request to consider Hookstone Road and Hookstone Drive for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and present an associated options appraisal report. The reason for the delay is due to officers working on the current proposals for the 20-mile-an-hour areas in Harrogate to identify appropriate traffic calming solutions on those streets which require them. This inevitably will have an impact on the options included in the report that will be presented for the streets discussed at the previous committee, and that is why this report will be presented to the November committee.
Okay, so if we move on to agenda item 5, which is the petition that we have received to reconsider the plans to require Knaresborough market traders to self-erect their stalls and preserve a beloved local landmark.
Thank you very much, Chair. So you'll have seen this report, which sets out the fact that we have received the petition and under the Council's procedure rules, as it has more than 500 signatures, it's been brought to the area committee meeting for your consideration. The report sets out the text of the petition that was signed. It also sets out the Council's arrangements for responding to petitions and the options that are open to you today. At section 4, there are also officers' comments on the petition. And at section 5, there are comments on the options available to members. So just to emphasise for members of the public who are watching today, this is not a vote on the decision to implement these. This is just what action the area committee will take in relation to the decision being taken at a future date by a different party. The report set out there, and the procedure is that the presenter of the petition has a representative who has 5 minutes to make a statement, and then members have 15 minutes to debate amongst themselves which of those options you'd like to take. So we should have Mr. Roger Hewitt here. So if you'd like to begin, you've got 5 minutes to make your opening statement before we pass on to the debate between members.
Good morning. The petition presented to the committee today has over 2,000 signatures from people who strongly believe that the removal of the provision and erection of special, unique council stalls at Knaresborough Market would have a catastrophic effect on the market's viability. This would also have a significant knock-on effect to the town's economy, undermining over 700 years of tradition. Our market helps to define the quintessential market town ethos and currently attracts, on average, 36 traders, which in turn attracts many residents and coachloads of visitors to our town, which is therefore of benefit to many Knaresborough businesses. It is a shop window for destination Knaresborough, with images of our thriving market being used on much of the town's publicity and wider social media coverage. North Yorkshire Council has indicated that a loss of over £30,000 per year is associated with the market. Whilst going fully self-erect would save some costs, the loss in revenue would massively reduce these savings, as each trader pays around £1,500 per annum for a stall. So losing around 20, as indicated in the survey, would wipe out the savings. We believe that the ongoing discussions with Knaresborough Town Council should be allowed to continue without such a threat. There is a confidence that a business model can be found that retains the provision and erection of these unique stalls, and it would be premature to withdraw this service, risking a reduction in stalls to the point that recovery would be potentially impossible. In a recent survey of market traders, 2/3 of those using the council stalls could no longer attend the market if full self-erect came into effect. This proposal therefore discriminates against the elderly and the less able traders. The reasons unique to Knaresborough include, firstly, Knaresborough Marketplace has limited space, making the use of traders' vans as part of a trader's plot, as is the case in markets like Northallerton, impossible. Secondly, the wind tunnel effect in the marketplace necessitates the use of heavier bespoke stalls, which could not be replicated or erected by the majority of traders, and also makes fewer market days viable. This is evidenced through the survey, which would result in substantially reducing a typical market, making it unsustainable and cancelling out any financial benefits considered from the proposal. The market is a fundamental pillar of Knaresborough's deep-rooted heritage, together with its historic castle, iconic viaduct, and other unique tourist attractions. It stands as a powerful testament to the town's enduring cultural and historic significance. Fourthly, this would have a devastating impact on the Christmas market in December, which is totally dependent on these unique heavyweight stalls. The loss would not only cripple the event, but also jeopardise the influx of over 20,000 visitors who flood the town that weekend, and dealing a severe blow to the local economy and to the community's festive spirit. We therefore urge the committee to recommend to North Yorkshire Council that 1. A full economic cost and benefit analysis to include the town centre that would result in the self-erect policy implemented, including the loss of income from fewer stalls performed. 2. No decision is made until the conclusion of discussions between North Yorkshire Council and Knaresborough Town Council as to the long-term management of the market. And 3, a consultation fully involving the community and the market traders is performed to arrive at a solution that sees our market and town grow and thrive. This should be put to the forefront of ongoing discussions. The solution is local. No one-size-fits-all North Yorkshire Council policy can ever meet the needs of the unique character and benefits that the Knaresborough market brings to our town. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Okay, so members, we have 15 minutes to debate this issue. Councillor Walker.
So I'd like to thank Roger for reading that out. I agree with all those points that have been made. I have talked to a number of traders, a number of residents, and people within the community. It would be a great loss if we cannot keep and sustain the market and actually grow the market. And I'd like to thank Mr. Teggin and Taylor for going in and collecting the petitions, as well as everybody else, as well as doing all the surveying. I've got a number of actual concerns with the, well, maybe not concerns, questions from the officers' report. But before I do that, I suppose, we've been here before when this was a Harrogate Borough Council run service. And for me, I think we need to look at how the area committee makes decisions, because this is a local decision and we should be making that decision. And unfortunately, we can't make a decision. We can only make a recommendation on the petition. Going into the report, it talks about a loss in the region of 25 to £30,000. Well, what is the number? That's quite a range. I understand that is between the two markets, so between Ripon and Knaresborough. So if you were to cut that in half, that's a potential loss of £12,000. We're talking about £1,000 a month. I get we need to break even, but actually, if you look at the budget figures, which I have had the privilege of doing, and there is a subsequent meeting after this where town councillors will get the opportunity to ask a number of questions. But there are a number of concerns that I have within there and a number of queries. So there is no budget lines for national insurance and pensions. Well, no wonder the budget is overspent. There are a number of areas that we think very quick savings can be made so that it could run at a profit. So I do think it's a paper loss, and there's a number of queries that we need to do that. As was pointed out, I'm not aware that any economic studies have been done. The Christmas market brings tens of thousands of pounds to local charities and local businesses. if you were to work out that £12,000 loss on an economic scale, just if you do it on a simple bit of paper, that's 50 people spending £5 on a coach that would cover that economic cost. So I would like an economic assessment to be done. The data that has been presented in front of us, there is clearly a mismatch between the surveys that have been done by some of the residents, and I'd like to see both those numbers put together to see why there is a discrepancy. And I think the final point for me, before I let others speak, is 4.5. There was the council has written to traders and get their feedback. Well, they wrote to the traders, but it wasn't about their feedback. They told them what was happening. This is not a consultation. This is a fait accompli, and we need to make sure that due diligence is gone through so that the community get to the right decision so that the market thrives. We need investment in the market and not cuts. Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the petitioners for bringing this to our attention. Having read the report and having passed some comments back, I don't believe there's sufficient information for us to make an informed opinion based on this report. I would therefore be saying that option 3 is quite clearly where we need to go as a committee. Such that more information is commissioned along the lines that Councillor Walker has suggested. It's too important a decision just to not examine it properly and the economic benefits, etc. I think it's a situation of a silo type decision. This bit isn't making any money, but what's the knock on? What's the impact? We don't know enough about this. So I would be asking the committee to that we would need to look at option 3. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbs.
I didn't think it was me next, but I'll go. Paul, this might be a little scattergun because I've got some questions that have been raised from what the petition brought up, from what Councillor Walker brought up, and from the report. Firstly, or just on the report, it does say that the petition is now online on the council's website. Unless I can't see it, it isn't. The most recent one is a petition banning motorhomes in Scarborough, which I'm sure is fascinating but not relevant to what we're doing here. So that's just a point of order, I suppose. My questions are: I take Councillor Walker's point that decisions should be made locally, but this is ultimately has to be a council decision. If we go down the route of area committees making decisions about what we spend where, then suddenly Richmond should be doing this, Selby will be doing that, Scarborough will be doing that, and the council will lose control of the overall agenda. I think we need to make a strong recommendation to the council, but I don't think it's fundamentally a decision that we can take here. Other questions: the petition mentioned 36 traders. How many of them at the minute use the service that is under threat? How many of them, for example, put their own stalls up anyway, have their own stalls? That information isn't in the report. The report mentions that new investment is needed in a new trailer. I assume that's something to do with ferrying the equipment to and from the market to put up. So if that isn't included in the £25,000 to £35,000 estimate, that will be a significant other cost to take into consideration when working out what this is going to cost. Overall, the council has quite a big budget deficit. £25,000 to £35,000 in that scheme of things isn't a lot of money, but actually it is really. This is taxpayers' money. We've got 7 markets across the whole county. 5 of the 7, I assume that obviously Ripon and Knaresborough being the exception, they put their own stalls up anyway. Is it right that the council spends that kind of money subsidising so few people to provide, yes, a very good service, but still a service that is paid for elsewhere by individuals who run markets elsewhere? The gentleman who raised the petition said £1,000 a month would be what we would lose from implementing this. I just want to know where that figure comes from. The report says £5.30, I think it was, to pay to put up a stall. Obviously, that doesn't get anywhere near the £1,000. I assume that's rents for the equipment, which the report does say the equipment will be given to those that don't have their own own stalls, which I think is very generous. And finally, no, I think that's it for questions. Apologies, that's a bit scattered because things were coming at me from different angles, and it's, you know, I'm not a Knaresborough councillor. I do support this one for Councillor Goslow and Councillor Walker. If Knaresborough can look at a solution that means this is can carry on as is and suits everybody, great. But that's a decision for Knaresborough, and I would support Knaresborough taking on that. But I'm not here to tell Knaresborough Town Council what to do. That's one for you guys to go away. So I don't know how far we can kick this can down the road. I don't know what point of decision actually has to be made. If we have to delay it slightly, as Paul said, we need slightly more information, that's fine. But I do think that this needs to be done as a priority, because I would imagine that this decision has to be made reasonably soon, or at least before the next financial year.
Yeah, I believe it has been pushed back. So originally it was going to go before the exec this month, and it has been postponed towards November or December. I think the point that Councillor Walker was making, and I would endorse, is that, okay, even if we can't actually make the decision, this item wasn't brought to us. Well, the only way it was brought to us was from the public, and we're incredibly grateful that they did. It wasn't sort of an automatic trigger for officers to think, actually, this should come before the area committee for their recommendation. And I think that's where the mistake lies, really, that it should have triggered to come to us. Councillor Goslow.
Thank you. And further to that, it should have first come to Knaresborough Town Council, because there'd been an agreement that Knaresborough did look at as part of devolution into whether they'd want to, when they saw the figures, when they saw how it was managed, they saw potential impact for Knaresborough economy, whether they would want to take over this service. But it didn't come to Knaresborough Town Council, and it didn't come to the area committee. And that lack of respect, is where I find a huge amount of fault. I just wanted to ask Edward whether we have received an economic impact analysis assessment, and further to that, whether we've received an equality impact analysis assessment for this policy change to help.
We've not received it. Obviously, at this stage, the only comments that we've got are the ones at section 4. Because it's not a decision that's being taken imminently, we don't have those documents yet. But when it does go for a decision, they will be followed up with those, will be accompanied by those documents.
Councillor Lacey.
Sam, you're not alone to be a little confused about what data there is, what finance, etc. And I'm not privy to all the information. Knaresborough Town councillors are gradually getting an understanding. But just one piece of information that I do have that might help some of the confusion. I understand that of the average 36 stall holders, half of them currently self-erect. The report does say actually that a majority self-erect. I don't know where that figure comes from, whether it's an amalgam of the Ripon and Knaresborough, because it may be different in Ripon. But in Knaresborough, I happen to know that it is about 50-50. If it's slightly different and that forms a majority, 51-49 is an interesting one. So there is a lot of reliance on the stalls in the marketplace. My substantive point, I suppose, is builds on, I think, Paul, your comments and others in terms of procedure and process. And as soon as the town became aware, or certainly I became aware of it on the 1st of August, with a letter to traders saying that from the 1st of September, they'd all go self-erect, when it was also known publicly that Knaresborough Town Council were in conversation with North Yorkshire Council to take over the running. It was a clear right hand, left hand, what on earth is going on here? So I think we just need to take a step back. The issue, however, is the November decision. And I think in terms of Paul's comment, in terms of gathering additional information, if that were to take longer than was necessary to inform the decision at the November exec, then I feel we would have lost an opportunity to really consider the option. The three suggestions from the petitioners, which I believe, Edward, you've got a copy of, but basically and simply, it is that there is a full economic appraisal which would be required to go to the exec anyway, that it is disrespectful to make a decision like this when you are talking to Knaresborough Town Council about them taking over, and it potentially undermines the prospect of Knaresborough Town Council making a good go of it, and that no decision should be made on the Knaresborough market Ripon is taking a different view. That's fine. But on the Knaresborough market, no decision should be made by the executive when part of the organisation is talking to Knaresborough Town Council to take it on. If that kicks it down the road 6 months, then fine. It's 10 grand in terms of the Knaresborough situation. And the consultation was woeful. The petitioners have constructed very carefully those 3 requests, if you like. We do have an option to go for option 3, and that's not a bad option. However, in terms of the timescale, option 4 could be considered, where we are basically, as an area committee, supporting the petitioners in those 3 requests, and that goes to the executive as part of the report that they, at the moment, are planning to consider in November. I think it includes Councillor Haslam's point in terms of extra information. So that would be my recommendation, as and when we move to any consideration or vote on the action that we take.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I can't see the decision on the forward plan. So people are talking about an executive decision. I don't know if it is an executive decision or it's an executive member's decision. But either way, I can't see it on the forward plan of the council. So I have no idea I think I know who is making the decision. I don't actually, because it could be an executive decision, couldn't it? Anyway, I can't see it on the forward plan. So there's confusion from my perspective as to who's the decision maker and when. I do agree with you, Councillor Goslow, that at the end of the day, something that's a policy change that's going, or a potential policy change that's going to impact a certain area, it's out of courtesy, never mind anything else, that you should be at the very least discussing with the local representatives. And in this case, that would be Knaresborough North Yorkshire councillors as well as Knaresborough town councillors. So I agree, and that's a big learning point for whoever is the decision maker here. And I also agree with you, Councillor Lacey, that that if there is discussions going on with Knaresborough Town Council about what they want to do with what's effectively their market at the end of the day, then the decision shouldn't be made while the discussions are going on. However, those discussions need to progress at pace, because to be honest, if your figures are right, Peter, that subsidy is subsidising 18 traders. So it's not really a good position to be in from a taxpayer's perspective. And also, I was cabinet member at Harrogate in 2010 when we were talking about deteriorating equipment and needing to do something. So the finances will involve, if you want to keep on supplying and erecting stalls, there's going to have to be a capital investment at some point. We may as well recognise that now. So from my perspective, I think that whatever discussions are going on with Knaresborough Town Council should proceed at pace, and the decision should then follow that. Either it's handed over to Knaresborough Town Council to manage it however they want to do it, or it's left with North Yorkshire. If it is left with North Yorkshire, I can't see anything other than the decision being to standardise around the councils, because if you're only subsidising 18 traders, you can't justify that to the rest of the taxpayers. And I do remember that Knaresborough Market was going to fail when they introduced the charge for erecting the stalls in the first place. And if that petition is attracting 2,000 signatures, then clearly the market's not failing. So I'm not sidetracked by that. So I think personally, I don't know what those options are. I'm not sure that. I don't think overview and scrutiny necessarily need to get involved. I don't know. I just think the discussions should proceed with Knaresborough at pace, and the decision be made after then. But there needs to be a date. You can't just push it on for months and months.
Councillor Timothy.
Thank you, Chair. I think, further to what everyone else has said, I think it would be disrespectful to the market traders and economically foolish to make the decision before Knaresborough Town Council takes it on. The funding goes. You can't get the council erected market stalls anymore. 3 months later, Knaresborough Town Council takes it on, and then you can again, and it's just messing everyone around. And because of that, and because of the comments that everyone has made, I would like to, and I can see time sticking on, so I'd like to formally move that this committee takes option 4 with the recommendation that an equality impact assessment is made, an economic impact assessment is made, that the exec waits until negotiations with Knaresborough Town Council are complete before making a decision, and that there is a consultation in advance before that decision is made.
Okay, Councillor Goslow.
It's just a quick comment in reply to say, as a Knaresborough Town Councillor, I have been disappointed with the pace of discussions. Knaresborough Town Councillors have been very willing and would like the pace of discussions to quicken, so it's not on our part. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbs.
Sorry, just one very brief. This might be me being silly here, but option 4, which I've a real issue with, I just want to make sure that the word council in there is correct. Should it be committee? Where the issue is one that the council executive are required to make the decision. The committee, as in us, not the council, as in full council, because we need to make that recommendation. Not right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say on this, Councillor Aldred?
Yeah, I mean, this is just shows that this image we have, or the party line being put to us that North Yorkshire Council is the localist of local councils, and we're always going to be making local decisions for the local people. Well, we haven't done it in this instance, have we? And the fact that the one hand's talking to Knaresborough Town Council, and Knaresborough Town Council want to progress this. I was a Knaresborough Town Council. I want to run that market, and I'm a little bit jealous we don't have a town council in Harrogate, and I hope one of the things that Harrogate Town Council, when it comes into being, will look at creating a market in Harrogate, because I think we should have one, and it would prosper. But it is at the heart of the town, as the petitioner said. It's a charter market. It's been there for hundreds of years. That's an interesting thing as well. Who actually has the charter? Is it the actual North Yorkshire Council, or is it should it have been the Knaresborough Town Council, who presumably would, or there was a council in Knaresborough who may have got the charter? Don't know. I do know a little bit about markets, because actually I was market officer at Skipton for 4 years, and I negotiated taking the Skipton market, which runs 4 days a week, from the district council to the town council, because it made a lot more sense for town council running it. And that's a highly successful council. The charter actually for Skipton, it goes with the castle. So if you buy Skipton Castle, you get Skipton Market as well. Don't think that works in Knaresborough, because nobody actually lives in the castle. But it might actually, if you look into it, it might go back to that. So I'm really disappointed North Yorkshire hasn't got its act together in this. It's not the only example. We're not taking local decisions. We're going, as the gentleman said, for the one glove fits all, or one decision fits all, and it doesn't. It patently doesn't. All our markets have got different traditions. They operate in different ways, and we should be looking at them all individually. We don't want this to go to overview and scrutiny, because it'll take ages. So I'm completely in agreement. We look at option 4. I would suggest we form a small subcommittee which meets once, and in consultation with the market traders, and actually puts a report together to the decision maker, who is probably the cabinet member rather than the actual executive. But the decision needs making, and these negotiations with Knaresborough Town Council need to be speeded up, and it needs making quickly. And so our recommendation has to go in quickly. But one size doesn't fit all. And, you know, if we as North Yorkshire Council learn anything from this debacle. We have to learn that. We need to talk to the local people who operate these services before we start handing letters out saying that such and such will happen at this time. It's terrible management, and as North Yorkshire councillors, we should be aware of that. So I'd go with option 4, but I'd actually not just do it from this meeting. Let's sit down and talk to the traders and Knaresborough Town Council and put a proposal together to the decision maker.
Okay, so we have reached technically the end of our debating time. So would somebody like to make a formal proposal? Do you need the wording of?
So I thought Councillor Timothy had done that. I think it's basically the words of the petition. I would like to make a slight addition, if I could, and take on board the points of Councillor Goslow. So I do think it's important that we have an equality impact assessment, as well as that might affect the traders and the residents that might be using it. But if people are happy, I can read out the 3 points. Plus, we need to make sure that the equality impact assessment is. So what the petition submitter asked for is a full economic cost and benefit analysis to include the town centre that would result in the self-erect policy, where implementing included the loss of income from fewer stalls is performed. Number 2, no decision is made until the conclusion of the discussions between North Yorkshire Council and Knaresborough Town Council as to a long-term management of the market. And 3, a consultation that fully involves the community and market traders is performed to arrive at a solution that sees our markets town grow and thrive. This should be put at the forefront of our ongoing discussions.
Councillor Harrison, did you want to?
I don't want to second that. I want to make an amendment to that. So I would propose that I support the second point in there, which was that no decision is made until. Sorry, would you mind, Matt, just repeating the second?
Yeah, that's fine, Michael. So no decision is made until the conclusion of discussions between NYC and KTC as to the long-term management of the market.
And the reason for me proposing that we just do that is because if we're suggesting that we do full economic appraisal, everything else you mentioned, number 1, and full community consultation with traders, the community, everybody else, then I can guarantee to you that the executive member will disregard what we're saying because that's impractical and will make the decision. So I just think that the second point is the practical step that really is what we need.
I understand that, but surely a business impact assessment will be done prior to the decision being made, I would hope.
Well, I mean, I don't know what assessment is being done, but just the extent of what you're asking for, I just think is impractical. But, I'm happy to be proved wrong.
So I've been told, and it may have been updated, but I understand that there is a report that will be going to the executive on the 5th of November. I know you've said it's not on the timetable, but that's what I've been told. So things may have changed. And whatever that report says, I would hope it would include an economic analysis, because otherwise, how can a decision made about something that nobody has no idea what it's really doing?
Councillor Lacey.
Possibly in order to move on, I think Councillor Harrison's suggestion is quite pragmatic in terms of the key thing is the local engagement, and we've highlighted that in terms of the learning, in terms of respecting local town council. Any decision that Knaresborough Town Council would make, or any agreement that it came to with North Yorkshire Council, clearly is also listening to and consulting with local residents, traders, etc. And they are already doing that. There have been meetings with the traders, with the chamber, etc. So in a sense, Knaresborough Town Council are carrying out that local consultation, and they're reflecting that in the conversation this morning. My only concern about the economic appraisal at the moment is that it would be too narrow, and I think we've learnt in a range of instances how the impact analyses, either equalities or economic, are often very narrow. So I'd have concerns about that, but I am sympathetic to Councillor Harrison's suggestion that we focus on the second of those objectives and that we simply propose and perhaps even add the at pace statement that no decision is made by the executive or the executive member until a resolution and agreement has been formed between Knaresborough Town Council and North Yorkshire Council, which we expect to continue now at pace.
Okay. Would any other comments? Anybody want to second that proposal, or any comments on whether we're still on option 4? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that if it moves it on. As long as our colleagues from Knaresborough are in agreement, I don't want to be treading on any toes whatsoever. And as Sam said, it's your market, it's their market, and it should be their decision.
Councillor Goslow?
I agree with that approach, and I know that Matt and myself will be pushing to see these impact assessments anyway ourselves.
Okay. So if Councillor Harrison wants to propose, Councillor Gibbs, did you want to come in?
So I'm getting confused here. Matt's put a proposal, Mike's proposal, Peter, I think, then put a separate proposal. I'm not quite sure. Chris has seconded something. I just don't know what. I mean, I'm happy to second. I think Michael's right on this. I would add the extra thing in about that we encourage North Yorkshire to move at a pace. I think Matt and Hannah have both given us their commitment that Knaresborough are more than willing to move at pace with this. And I think we have to take their word on that. And I think we can encourage North Yorkshire in the strongest possible terms to move at pace from their end. But I do agree that if we start going down the routes of extra consultations and stuff, we run the risk of missing the boat completely. And we end up with what Andrew said. And, you know, there might be a period of nothing in the middle if the cabinet member makes the decision before Knaresborough is in a position to take on the council, and we need to avoid that. So I just don't know which proposal is actually on the table.
Sorry, no, that's my fault. So I was looking at Michael's proposal of taking the element from the statement, which is that we would want no decision to be made until the conclusion of the discussions between Knaresborough Town Council and North Yorkshire Council about the management of the market. Okay, so can we take a vote on that as our recommendation? Okay, all in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, can I just thank everybody for taking the time to do that. Thanks once again to the petitioners for bringing this to our attention. We really, really do appreciate it. And thanks for taking the time, those members of the public who came to attend. Thank you. Okay, so I don't know if we want to just give people a minute if they want to leave before we go on to the next agenda item. Okay, so if we can move on to agenda item 6, which is the Economic Regeneration, Tourism and Transport Project Development Fund. Catchy title for the Area Constituency Committee. If I can hand over to Rebecca McAuliffe on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the purpose of the report was to provide a bit of an update following the previous meeting at which members endorsed 3 projects for support through the Economic Regeneration, Tourism and Transport Fund, and also to present a further 3 project scoping forms for possible additional projects to ensure that we can allocate and spend the full budget of £100,000 before the end of March 2025. So I won't go back over the details of the fund, though there is a bit of a summary included in section 2 of the recovery report, should you wish to refer to that. So at the meeting on the 30th of May, 3 projects were endorsed by the area committee members, and these have since been formally signed off by our assistant director, and progress is being made on all 3. So North Yorkshire Council's highways are working with aligned property partners on the design for both the Harrogate Cycling Infrastructure Plan Corridor 2 and the A59 Missing Link projects. They're now progressing as planned, and we'll look to provide a more detailed update at the next meeting on those 2. In terms of the project to decarbonise Knaresborough Wellbeing Hub, the good news is that North Yorkshire Council property team have now agreed to fund some of the initial fabric first improvements to support the project. And that means we've been able to begin to explore other complementary works that could be funded with contribution from the area committee. So that would be things like enhancing the heating controls for the boiler, a green roof cycle shelter and water saving measures. An application to the Shared Prosperity Fund has now been submitted by Knaresborough Town Council for the solar panels, battery storage and EV chargers, and that's due to be considered at the next panel meeting in October. I would just highlight that there are apparently very limited funds remaining within the SPF pot, and so there is a risk that the bid won't be successful. As you know, the original plan was that the area committee contribution would provide the match funding to unlock the SPF funds, but whether or not that bid is successful, all of the measures to improve the building do fully support the decarbonisation aim, and will put the project in a better position for securing future funding. So with these 3 projects underway, we still have £30,000 that has to be spent by March 2025. We have met a number of members since the last meeting to progress some of the ideas put forward and completed scoping forms for 3 more potential projects, namely the Knaresborough Land Train feasibility study, Starbeck and Belmont level crossings and Harrogate Station mural artwork. As we've outlined in the report, unfortunately, there isn't sufficient funding available to take forward all of these 3 projects. And given that there's likely to be an alternative funding source available to progress the mural without support from the area committee, as well as difficulty and uncertainty in being able to complete that project within the timescales of the fund, we're recommending that members endorse the Knaresborough Land Train feasibility study and the project to fund ANPR sensors at both Starbeck and Belmont level crossings. Just to make it clear, although the possibility of installing more air quality monitoring equipment is also included in the scoping form for Starbeck, air quality at both of these locations is known to be well within the UK limits. And so given the limited budget, we don't feel that this is currently a priority. Together, the land train feasibility and the 2 ANPR sensors will spend the remaining £30,000 budgets. So just before we move on to discuss the projects, members may have seen the initial report about the land train, which mentions that Knaresborough Town Council commissioned a report about the land train and would be willing to take over the potential running of the scheme. However, it's now been clarified that the Town Council had not made any such resolution and have not been asked to take over the scheme in the long term. And we do apologise to the Town Council for this misunderstanding. And we've been informed that Knaresborough District Chamber of Trade has commissioned the SPF project, from which this project has arisen, and the amended report does reflect this. Therefore, if the funding for the feasibility study is granted, we would need to work with partners to see who could oversee the feasibility study and who would be able to take over the project in the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, open to the floor. Councillor Haslam.
Although in the Starbeck situation, we're suggesting that the air quality isn't an issue, I take issue with the way it's measured currently. I don't think it's fit for purpose. And also it does not sort out things like the air quality particulates in particular. So I would like to see air quality measured at this area in real time. And that's the other issue. Real time is fundamental. If you average it out over time, you're not going to hit the peaks. You get 2 to 7 minute waits, and that's when it creates peak particulates, peak exhaust fumes, and so averaging it over a year using a static method is inappropriate. So although I'd be happy to support taking it with the in the lesser, I think if we want to truly get value and be able to make a difference and make someone to make a decision to improve the downtimes, then we need as much evidence as possible. And I believe the air quality monitors will impact and help drive that decision. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Harrison?
Can I just check on the land train thing, notwithstanding obviously the misunderstandings around who'd asked for the study? Has there been any discussions with anybody about whether, I mean, I know the study hasn't been done yet, about appetite for running one though? I mean, am I hearing right that the group that have asked us to do a study, are they in any way interested in running one, or are they just, I want to study and someone else can do it if it sounds like a good idea? I don't mean to be flippant, but if no one's interested, then why are we spending the money?
Can I bring in Councillor Lacey on that?
In the context of my earlier declared interest and as part of a collaborative event approach across Knaresborough, Chamber and Civic Society and Renaissance Knaresborough combined to apply to Shared Prosperity Fund for a feasibility study, which was conducted over the last 9 months and is still the final report is yet to be received. But and it was focused on the physical town connectivity, if you like, and means to get around. And specific questions were asked in that consultation. We had a professional research company undertake research not only in local Knaresborough but across the trip geography, if you like, who comes to Knaresborough for a day's trip, etc. I can't remember the numbers now, but it was a few thousand well-researched and lengthy sort of questionnaires that were taken. Land Train featured in that and was very much supported. The report will be in the public domain within the next few weeks, probably. So feasibility has been done. I'd also comment, again, having lived in the Knaresborough area for 30 odd years, a land train of this type has been talked about for many years, and this is just an opportunity. And in fact, Knaresborough Town Council did put a smaller amount aside last year, I think, in their budget, which couldn't be spent. So Knaresborough Town Council, whilst it hasn't made the decision in respect of this, it has signalled its interest in a land train in its recent past. So there's a lot of evidence. Meeting at the Chamber of Trade a week ago, a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of traders a lot of businesses who would want to, can I use a pun, get on the bandwagon for purposes of advertising, promotion, etc. So it's a real circular economy opportunity, and addressing the physical difference between Riverside and Market Town is a real goer in my view. So thank you.
Well, if the feasibility study's been done, what's this feasibility?
Sorry, this is physically to put one on the ground. So this will put a land train on the ground for a week to assess the feasibility. We've asked people. This will now go around the streets for a week in October on a half term when there are other events, and we will gather further information from people who are actually using it. Do you like it? Would you pay for it? Etc. etc. Hope that clarifies the situation.
Okay, I've got Matt.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm supportive of this idea. However, I've got a number of areas that I would need some certainty on, or queries, I suppose. So it sounds as though it's going to run on Waterside and then go up to the town. At both end of Waterside, there are hills. I don't know whether the question has been asked, can the land train get up such a steep hill? Because if it can't, it's really a non-starter. So we need that kind of reassurance that we're not going to spend £15,000 and it gets delivered and it can't get up a hill. And then I suppose the other question which kind of leads in follows on from the first one is, have something else been considered, potentially electric minibus, a golf buggy or something like that. There might be other forms of transport that might, if the land train can't get up a hill, might be suitable. And I think my third area is really of safety. So if a car goes down there, when it's busy with all the tourists and residents that are enjoying our beautiful town, they have to quite quickly move out of the way. It causes a little bit of carnage, if that's the right word, and I would want some reassurance that it's going to be safe for pedestrians to use the waterside as well while the land train is in operation. Thank you.
Councillor Broadbank.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm obviously keen on the Starbuck Belmont level crossing ones, and concerned that the information about the air quality that we've been getting and been reassured about, there are doubts that that actually is accurate, has been measured in a particularly accurate way. And I would obviously want to get on with this. I now have an issue whether if Paul's right, then we've got a problem, because I think we need to get on with it and get the equipment to. If it's not being measured correctly, we need to make sure it is correct, measured correctly.
Unfortunately, we're not going to get an answer on that today. I don't know whether anybody who's present might be able to steer us on whether having that additional data about the air quality would actually support the case, or whether the proposed ANPR monitoring equipment sensors would be enough to show the wait times. Because obviously, if you've got the vehicle wait times, there must be a rough calculation that could be done about the exhaust, etc., that would be created with the stationary traffic. Melissa, I know I'm putting you on the spot because I know you're not here to discuss this, but I don't know if there's anything that you can
Could I just
comment on.
Point out, Chair, that people have been encouraged to switch engines off.
I know, but not everybody does.
And some do.
Yeah.
Some do, but it's no guarantee that they all do.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that here. I mean, you're right in what you say, but I think we just have to look at that detail a little bit further. But we can have that discussion with the environment team.
Councillor Hasman.
Yeah, I've spoken to Dr. Kevin Carr on this, and he's looking at he's responsible for air quality in North Yorkshire Council, and sadly he couldn't attend today because he's actually presenting some work on air quality to the council leader shortly, and I was hoping that perhaps one of his team would be down here today, but I don't think. There. So maybe. I'm sorry, I don't remember your surname, Emily, but maybe Emily could perhaps offer us some thoughts on this. Thank you.
My surname's Revel. I work in the scientific team with Kevin Carr. We do carry out air quality monitoring at Starbeck, and it is only for nitrogen dioxide. It's done using the set government scheme, so it's not that it's bad monitoring, it just doesn't provide the amount of data that Councillor Haslam would like. If you had a monitor, you'd get particulate monitoring, you'd be able to see the real-time monitoring in terms of peaks in the mornings, peaks in the evenings, peaks when the trains are running and the gates are down. So although there is nothing wrong with our monitoring, a monitor of this sort would provide more information.
Could you, I mean, presumably that is more expensive than what is in the report.
Sorry, say that again.
To provide the equipment to do that is more expensive than what is in the report?
The prices that are quoted in the report are what it would cost for the sort of monitoring we discussed in the meeting.
It would be. So it's what we talked about in the meeting. So it would do that.
It is, but you've already spent if we've got 30,000 to spend, you've already spent 15,000. So this would, so the monitors are the two APNR monitors, I think, are £7,500 each. So therefore, you've only got £15,000 to spend.
So what we're saying is, if we did that, we couldn't do the land train as well. We could do it
unless we can find some, unless Dr. Kevin and his team have got some air quality monitors that they can donate, for want of a better phrase. But certainly, but yes, we would need greater funds than the 15,000, Chris.
We do have some air quality monitors of the same sort, and we are looking to deploy them in different areas. But obviously, that is taking out a monitor from circulation for us to use in other locations. So, if the committee could support in other ways in terms of the subscriptions that we have to pay for or anything like that, then that would be welcome from our point of view, because our plan was to move them around more regularly than it seems like is planned here.
Councillor Gosway.
I was just going to mention those apparatus that was raised in T overview and scrutiny that I thought had been purchased. But can I ask how much the subscriptions would be that you mentioned might need adding to?
I think it's a couple of thousand every 2 years.
Could that potentially be topped up by locality budget if this is seen as a good project for this area?
Rebecca, is that something, are you aware of any reason that would not be possible? Or
the budget that we've got through the area committee fund is a kind of a one-off capital project fund, so we wouldn't be able to fund.
No, sorry, from a councillor's individual locality budget, would that be an option?
I'm afraid I don't know.
You don't know whether, okay.
It's unlikely because we can't commit the locality grant. Next year we don't know if we're going to get a locality grant because it's decided each year by council as to whether a locality grant is given, and B, we are not allowed to something that is going to incur an ongoing support. It's an ongoing cost. So I don't think that's the other option. What I would say though is there's also an electricity point required, and also Wi-Fi in order for the monitoring to be recorded. So those things need to be taken into account so that this project is fully costed and we don't get any surprises.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. I think of the three projects, for me, the Starbeck and Belmont level crossing project is the most worthy. I do think it's a difficult traffic problem that we've got in Starbeck. It's been there for ages. We all know that the air quality is bad. I think it needs monitoring in a much more efficient way. This project also, just reading from the report here, looks at how we can improve traffic movements and reduce the down on the time when the barrier is down. I think that's the main aim of the project. And as just listening to colleagues, it seems that spending, I think it will probably cost more than what we're estimating in the report. And I would prefer, rather than spending the £30,000 too thinly, I would prefer the money spent and focused entirely on the Starbeck and the Belmont level crossing, because I think it will cost more than we think. With all the extra items that have been mentioned in previous discussions. So I think it's a super worthy project. It's probably, and I think we should probably just focus on that rather than anything else. I hear what colleagues say about the Knaresborough land train feasibility study, which sounds good, but for me, there are too many imponderables, too many areas of uncertainty. I'm not sure if it's 100% practical. I think it's a great idea, but I think it needs further work before it comes to this committee. So I would like, preferably, the committee to focus on the Starbeck level crossing problem entirely, because I think that will absorb more funds than we think. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lacey.
It's a difficult sort of balancing act, isn't it? The couple of points from Councillor Walker's comment and the advanced stage, if you like, of the land train proposal, in that there has been a full site visit. The land train will come with all the insurance and coverage and be delivered by a professional company who take these land trains up and down steeper hills than are even in Knaresborough. So I don't think those are those are concerns. It's absolutely oven ready. I think we have a dilemma because I take Councillor Haslam's points in terms of we want to make the absolute best decision, and clearly impact on air quality and the likes will be really important. But as has been pointed out, the core purpose of the feasibility study around the Starbeck crossing is to consider how we reduce the downtime, which will clearly have a benefit in terms of how many cars need to wait, etc. So it's a sort of course it will improve. We'd like to know by how much, and we do have a responsibility to monitor the air quality effectively. I think it might be worth exploring between officers whether there is a leasing rather than a purchasing option, because I think that emerged. And I think in that sense, in that case, we may still be able to proceed with both of the options and therefore follow the officer's recommendation, but taking into account the conversation that we've had. So I'd much prefer us to stick with the officer's recommendation, taking into account the comments that have been made around air quality.
Councillor Gosling?
I agree with Councillor Lacey's comments. I think we should look at choosing both those schemes as described in by officers. I think the conversations are then with the scientific team as to whether we can use apparatus that has already been purchased, and again with regards to leasing, and whether that could be funded in a different way. And I still think that locality budget is something to pursue.
Councillor Aldred?
Councillor Goslow is very good at spending other councillors' locality budgets. But having said that, I'm prepared to offer a way out here, because I thought when we were in the meeting, Councillor Haslam, with the officers talking about this, I thought they agreed with 15 grand would be enough to improve the air quality. Am I, with the modern, with the updated things, am I wrong there?
The £15,000 would be for the ANPR sensors.
So it doesn't have any
it wouldn't include the air quality.
Which I thought we went on to discuss that. No.
I wasn't in that meeting, but
sorry.
I understand that it was just
that. It was, wasn't it? So we need, what sum of money are we looking for, Emily?
I think the costs are in the report, but I think it's between 15 and 20.
So it is another 15 grand.
Yeah.
So your locality fund wouldn't do it, would it? Because my locality actually does include the crossing, half of it anyway. And I have a little bit less left this year, which I'd be prepared to put in there if it meant an increase in the air quality, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit more expensive. So I don't know a way out.
Well, that partly depends on how much you've got. I think the way around it, I think Councillor Haslam made a valid point, which is that we're not, our budget does not allow us to fund things that are on a sort of continual basis. However, obviously there are two elements to this, aren't there? Because there's also the ANPR sensors themselves, which I guess you could make a contribution towards, which would mean then the overall cost of those would be reduced, which would then leave some of that budget as a way around it. I don't know. Right, I want to bring in some more people. So Councillor Schofield.
There was, I have no recollection of anything being recorded for this, and this has been on my, because I have a very active member within my ward who's very keen on this and has been writing to me since 2014 on it. And he's dragged me down to the Starbeck crossing. I've actually even been in the box and operated the thing, the lever to bring the gates.
Oh, it's your fault, was it?
Yeah, it never went back up ever since. But so, but there's never actually been any study that Network Rail have entertained. I've even met with Network Rail representatives, and the beauty of this idea is that we are providing evidence that says this is an issue. So that's why this I believe is actually a turning and a pivotal point in us being able to get what we require at Starbeck. Thank you.
Councillor Timothy.
I mean, you've offered a way out, Chair, but another way out that occurred to me is, as Councillor Haslam rightly points out, we can't spend our locality budget to fund a recurrent expense. But it occurs to me that we could put that a one-off expense would purchase a set period of time of a lease of this equipment. It also occurs to me that if, as a committee, we decide that the pollutant monitoring is more important than the ANPR, then we could ask that any money from the budget that we're allocating in this discussion be allocated to the pollutant monitoring as a priority over the ANPR. It just occurred to me that's an option that we have.
Okay. I mean, I do note that at 3.4 it does say and Starbeck and Belmont level crossing is supported partially by supporting allocation to fund 2 ANPR monitoring equipment sensors. So, Rebecca, I don't know if you know of any other pots then that might be able to support the final bit, which is the pollution monitoring.
Not that I'm aware of, but it is something we could obviously look into. But I'm not aware of anything. I don't know if any colleagues in highways or anything. No.
Councillor Broadbank.
Just a thought. I might get shot down for saying it. The Harrogate Station mural artwork, could that be funded privately? Some companies in the town. Pardon? Oh, that's been taken out. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Councillor Haslam.
I've got questions on both projects, but let's just do, while we're talking about the Starbeck one. Chris, just to refresh your memory, we worked out in a meeting, or at least I did in the last meeting, on the back of a fag packet, that we were looking at a cost of about £23,000, and that was before we got the internet and the electric. So in other words, a socket in the middle of so that's where that sort of cost lay, the details were provided for us in that meeting, and that's the sort of number we're looking at in terms of the suggestion. I think the combined data is really what's critical here. But if there were a preference, it would actually have to be, I think, actually just the number of cars monitoring. I think that would give you a better proxy to other things rather than the particulars. So if you were forced into a choice, so those are things I would offer. But if we can find an alternative way to be able to finance this, then that would be equally helpful. In terms of the land train question, I don't know what the route is of the train, but would it involve it travelling on the A59? Is my question.
A site visit has taken place. I'm not aware of the final decision on the route, but the route has been considered with all traffic considerations and the likes in mind by a professional sort of road traffic person in terms of the company that would deliver it. It may go down the A59, which would be a lovely traffic calming initiative, in my view.
Well, exactly, but maybe we need to have the council traffic officers involved on that particular issue. I would just be concerned that the A59, which is considered a major artery.
The primary route would be from Cunningham Hall car park to York Place car park, taking in the Riverside and the marketplace, and whether it's there and back or not. So there's a very small amount of the A59 that might be going across Glacier Street traffic lights, but the key purpose is to connect Riverside with Castletop. So hence Marketplace and Riverside.
Okay, does anybody else want to say anything at this point? Councillor Aldred.
Yeah, having reread the report, I think we've, as Paul just mentioned, I think we've got to take the air monitoring as much as we'd like to do it. I mean, it is being done, but not to the standard that, but it's been done to an acceptable standard, but not an updated standard. No. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it.
So I'll just remind you, let me just check which particular act it is. But we have a duty now to reduce PM, that's particulate matter 2.5 levels under the Environment Act of 2021. We are not measuring this, so therefore we cannot take a view on that. So I would suggest that that we are not providing adequate. I'm not suggesting the council is not doing what it's supposed to do in any way, shape or form, but I just believe we ought to be doing more in terms of this particular act.
I agree, but that's probably a discussion for another day. We've got an offer to do the ANPR monitoring. I think we have to do that. And I think it'd be callous to spend the money on the air monitoring when we've got a proposal from Knaresborough which looks fully costed. So I'm happy to propose the office recommendation. We split both the money as detailed in the report, but we keep an eye on the air quality and look for opportunities as a council, and perhaps we could talk to our new climate change champion about this as we because it's something that obviously we have to look at across the council. But I propose the officer recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to second that recommendation? Yeah, Councillor Lacey, Councillor Schofield. Okay, so are we ready, members, to take a vote on this? All those in favour? Okay, all those against? And any abstentions?
That's 11 in favour and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. Lovely, thank you very much. Yep, can we take a comfort break and come back in 10 minutes, if that's okay? Hi, hello, welcome back. Okay, if we can move on to agenda item, is it 7 we're on now?
Yeah.
Which is a report from Melissa on the gully cleaning in Harrogate and Knaresborough. If I can, over to you, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to update the committee on the gully cleaning schedules in Harrogate and Knaresborough from April 24 to August 2024. The request for this report came forward from an informal Highways and Knaresborough Constituents Committee programming session at a member's request. In July 2022 and July 2023, a risk-based approach and data-led programme for gully cleaning across the county was introduced using a software called Carbon Tech. A detailed survey of the assets across the county took place and the state of the gullies were captured and inputted into this software. Following a trial in 2022 and 2023, an interim programme was set up and introduced between September 23 to April 24. This included input from local highways team, including specific hotspot flooding areas known to them. It ensured that the A roads were included and the key significant routes were included in that as well. By April 24, we'd seen 12 months of the new risk-based system and we'd recognised improvements across the county. The new 2-year programme commenced from April 24, ensuring that the gully crews only attended those that were needed and needed attention. We have approximately in Harrogate and Knaresborough 39,000 gully assets, and some of those will be on a 6-month programme, a 12-month programme or a 24-month programme clean. And that, again, the frequency of that depends on whether they're on the main roads, whether there's a specific flooding known flooding issue in that area. Also depends on the gully location as well in terms of junctions, etc. Appendix A identifies the Harrogate and Knaresborough programme, and to date there's no slippage to report. We do have slippage sometimes, and that's due to weather events where we've had to take gully carts elsewhere and focus the attention elsewhere on the network. Sometimes, obviously, we see issues with vehicle maintenance as well. But where we do have slippage, we do always envisage to try and get back on track. So we'll might do some overtime weekend work, for example, to bring those programmes back into play. But currently, we're on track and no slippage at the minute. The teams do review the outputs and obviously make time up when they need to if the programme gets behind. So the recommendation of this report is for the committee to note the updates provided, and in particular the programme in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Mann.
Yes, I'd just like to congratulate the highway team on this new risk-based approach. I think it's excellent. I think it's working, certainly in my division. We're seeing a lot less local floods due to gullies being blocked. So very pleased indeed with this new approach. And it's nice to see the spreadsheet again. I think that's excellent. I think it's very reassuring for residents as well. So I'm certainly very pleased to read the report and to hear the progress which has been made. So thank you.
Councillor Timothy.
Yes, I just had a small question about the gully cleaning schedule. You said in your report that it's on schedule, which of course we do welcome. I was just confused because you also say in the report, section 4.1, that there's 39,000 recognised gully assets across Harrogate and Knaresborough. And then in 4.2, you said you've attended approximately 4,000. So I made that out to be 10% of the gullies. From my calculations, assuming that they're all in the 24-month cycle, which of course they aren't, that would still be 10%, only 10% of the gullies in 20% of the time. So I guess I just don't understand how that therefore means that, how that marries up with saying that you're on schedule.
But we currently are in Harrogate and Knaresborough at the minute with the gully clean, so we are there basically full time at the minute. So whilst it perhaps looks in terms of proportion of the year that we haven't done the correct proportion, actually we're working full time. So we are where we need to be in terms of that programming, and considering that actually we consider the assets across the county. We have not just Harrogate and Knaresborough to look at, we have the full county. So in terms of programming, like I say, we're here full time and we're on target in terms of where we have scheduled the programme to be.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Goslow.
Thank you. I just wanted to know whether I've misinterpreted sentence in 4.2 where it says that you've completed 93 reactive non-programme gully cleans in Harrogate and Knaresborough since April 24. So since the flooding in May 24, from conversations I've had with officers, they talk about hundreds of gullies cleaned in Knaresborough, which I guess is not, that are reactive to the flooding and not programmed. So I don't understand what have I misinterpreted in those figures.
I think I'd have to come back to you on that in terms of, you're right, after the flash flooding incident in Knaresborough, we were in there for a good 3 weeks consistently, and that was classed as reactive. So it was against, we had some programmed in, so we did some on the programme, but we also came in with a second gully cart. We had 2 gully carts in there and we were reactive. For approximately 3 weeks, we were working in Knaresborough. I'd have to come back to you on that figure to check that that's correct, but because it could be more than 94, so I'll have to check that. It could be an error. I'll come back to you on that with a written update if that's okay, Chair.
I'd be really grateful for that. Thank you, because it's something I've been trying to get a final figure from well, now 3 officers. It really worries me, especially when the independent report is being written, that the right figures are given to feed into that report so we can understand exactly what happened in the flooding incident.
Can I just ask, Melissa, is when it's being calculated, whether something should be sort of 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, are the issues raised on the website by residents, is that all factored into that calculation?
Yes, it is. So it's very much the input of the local highway officers who are on the network full time. Obviously, they understand the customer queries that come through. They address the customer queries. They also understand in terms of where we have to be reactive. We then take that and consider whether actually that needs to be addressed in the longer term programme. So we're constantly reviewing that as well in terms of actually is there another site that perhaps needs to be updated.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. It's great to see, Melissa, because when you see something that we talked about for so long now to be in place is really good. I just had 2 questions, if I may. Do we still follow the same process that if they do a clean and it's not flowing, do they still then just mark that to come back and do some further work later, as they did before? And secondly, do we still hire in the monster jetter, whatever it was called, for the really horrible ones? Do we still do that where we sort of bank them up and try and get all those really horrible ones done in one go?
Take the last point first. Yes, we do still get the jetter in for those more difficult ones, particularly when it's not just a gully pot issue, it's perhaps a further issue in the pipes, in the drainage pipes. The gully cart will, if they at the first attempt they can't clear the pot, they will also have a second visit, so that will be reprogrammed in for a second visit. It's also brought to our attention, so through the software, through the database, they'll annotate what the issue was, whether they couldn't get the gully lid up or whether there was something in the pot that they couldn't remove during the time, and then that's brought to our attention. So if further work is needed, such as further jetting work, or indeed in some cases there is an issue, a bigger issue like a pipe that's damaged that needs to be repaired, and we take that knowledge and intel from the gully crew guys who put that into the software, and then we can take that. So it's very interactive.
So is that done? Is that like in cab in terms of a successful clean? Is that an in cab press of a button? It's all done like that, like sort of real time. Yep.
So they'll have the tablets and they can annotate what the issues are, or if it's a successful clean, they can tick that off as a successful clean. Sometimes it's something as simple and simple but not great in terms of a parked car over the gullies, for example, which particularly in the urban areas of Harrogate and Knaresborough, we unfortunately, despite our best efforts to notify people, we still have issues with parked cars in those areas, and we may have to return.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Some of my residents are still living with the aftermath of the flooding. They still do get nervous when it rains. There was a lady over the weekend when we had a bit of a flash flood where we had to get some sandbags out. That's not a North Yorkshire sort of drain issue, but I would like to thank you, Melissa, for sending the wagon round when we did have those floods to clear some of the drains. So thank you for that input. I think my residents still have concerns about the drains, and I think perhaps rightly so. I have hundreds of pictures of blocked drains. I could probably have a drain picture every day at least. It would be really useful for me to have a bit more detail so that I can go back to residents when they query a drain, so that I can look and see when it was last cleaned or when it might be due for cleaning. I think that level of detail would be really helpful. I do know some of the drains, the same drain gets reported and it doesn't still seem to be clear. I get there's thousands of drains that are on the list. I do know that report is available. I think it's been made available to members in Thurso, certainly one that I know of, and it would be really useful for my just reference whether I could do that, or whether I could go and look on the system and do that, or whether we can get those reports for all members. I think the service level detail is what it is, but I think some of that local level detail would be really helpful to have, so that we can sort of see perhaps where there might be some pressure points ourselves, and see if we can sort of prioritise those, because there are clearly drains, certainly in my division, that are not being cleared, and that's evident by the residents reporting them on a periodic basis. Thank you.
Did you want to come back on that, Melissa?
We can certainly look into that request, because it is possible to pull that detail off the software. I think there's a measured approach between responses and the resources available. So we do have to be careful in terms of managing expectations, in terms of the information that we provide. And I'm sure you'll understand that, but we can certainly, the software allows for that, so we can help with that.
Councillor Walker.
So I suppose it would be really useful to understand. So you've talked about some of the gullies being cleaned on a 24-month period. It'd be interesting to know how many of those are actually met. That there is one particular drain I know that has been blocked ever since I have been elected, and regardless of me reporting it, it still isn't being cleared. So clearly it's not being done on a 24-month period. So that's why it'd be really useful to get that level of detail to understand when drains are being cleared and when they're not, and how are we really performing on a more detailed basis.
Councillor Haslam.
Apologies, I had to step out a little bit of the meeting, and so if what I say is a repeat of someone else, please close me down immediately. In terms of climate change, we're going to get wetter, and there's going to be more surface water and more surface water flooding potentially. So I think it's not just about blocked drains, but it's about the sort of the drainage provided, and we will have to in future make sure that there's perhaps a better alert system. I happen to live near the Gardeners Arms, which is in a dip at the bottom of Bilton Lane. Whenever we get a flash flood, that area will flood. One of the things that I do, and I'm not suggesting everybody else has to do it, but one is, if I know there's rain coming, I actually go check the grids. And if there's leaves across it, then I clear it. And I think, but the other thing is, if it's something there that I can't do, I would let the council know. And I think we perhaps have to engage more. Like, we all got weather forecasts during the winter when salting was going on, but whether we get weather forecasts when we expect flash flooding and how it might impact, and then perhaps the public can be alerted, and they can be, and we can actually create this as a service that says, hey, look, we think there could be some flash flooding. Do you want to take precautions? Do you want to make sure, because some areas will be prone to this? So I'd just like to sort of throw that out there, that it's a team effort, and I think we could do more to help ourselves sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Councillor Timothy.
Sorry, I have another question. It's almost a shame that Jonathan Clubb has had to leave us, because it kind of pertains to Parks and Grounds as well. Sometimes my residents email me to tell me they believe that a gully is blocked by a tree root. What's the procedure in that case? Because obviously that's got intersection with Parks and Grounds.
We do have tree root cutter facilities on our gullies, so it's like an adaptation onto the gully wagons. So it's something we can deal with, but clearly, depending on where it is and what it looks like, we will have that close working relationship with the parks team, which we have. So
excellent, thank you very much.
Okay, if we're all done, then I just thank you very much, Melissa, for bringing that report and taking questions. Very much appreciated. Okay, so I will move us on then to agenda item 8, which is Harrogate and Knaresborough active travel update. We've got public statement. Edward, over to you.
So that's the statement from Gia, who wasn't able to attend. So she'll receive the response to that one in writing later today.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, no problem. So I'm back to you, Melissa, then.
Just a point of order on that. Do we not? I seem to remember we read them out. No, we don't. Okay.
That was changed in the Constitution, Chris,
Right.
unfortunately. So over to Melissa.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to advise the committee of progress to date on active travel schemes within the Harrogate and Knaresborough area. The details of the expected delivery dates and associated budgets can be found in Appendix A, but the detail of each scheme and the progress can be found within the body of the report, which explains progress and of the specific projects and next steps. I'll just take you through a number of those projects in the report. So the Oatlands and Wetherby Road crossing points, we're looking at delivering 2 crossing points to link Slingsby Walk, which is popular for cyclists and pedestrians. We're looking at creating two safe pedestrian and cycling crossing points, one on Oatlands Drive and one on Wetherby Road. We've carried out 2 consultations and commenced land dedication legal process with the Duchy of Lancaster. Obviously, this has some impact on locations within the Stray. We've got detailed designs and associated traffic regulation orders are also now in progress for that. We have been allocated some funds by the former Harrogate Borough Council to resurface and improve the maintenance of Harland Way. Harland Way is between East Park Road, Spofforth and the outskirts of Wetherby, popular cycling route, and this route is approximately 3 kilometres long. We have been working with the Parks team to look at introducing an improved surface on this route. We have carried out a site visit and we are pulling together the designs and the costs for that at the minute. Active Travel Fund 2, which is the Victoria Avenue scheme. In our last update, you'll recall we were about to go to consultation. We have been working on the designs and we expect to have these complete at the end of October this year. As part of phase 2, a feasibility to consider a central bi-directional cycleway is also in development. We're treating that as a phase 2 so that that doesn't have an impact on the original phase implementation. If this is viable, we have consultants looking at that at the minute, and if this is viable, then it will be developed to a bid-ready status so that we can bid for future funding to develop that on Victoria Avenue. Bilton Crossing is still in progress. We've been waiting for a road safety audit, which it's now been issued to us, so we have that. We're just running through that and providing a designer's response to that. The design of the Bilton Crossing will have to change before we can implement it, and that's something that we're working on at the minute. Killinghall Greenway build-out is a scheme that's been put forward, requested by the Harrogate District Cycle Action Group, and that is something that we have allocated funds for. We've had initial conversations with the local member and an informal engagement exercise will take place with the local residents and businesses at the end of this month. We do have some indicative designs for that scheme as well. Otley Road Sustainable Transport Measures. The report in section 8 details a number of individual projects within this fund. I'm not going to take you through them now, but happy to take questions about those individual specifics if needed. But I think it's quite clearly set out within the report in terms of the current progress and where we're at with those. Highways Transportation Improvement Plan study report is currently being reviewed internally by officers for comment. Once the report has been reviewed, the findings will come back to members in the autumn winter, date yet to be set, but it'll come back to this committee by another officer. Chair, I have received a request from a member to provide information in terms of expenditure with consultants. I haven't got that today to verbally update, but I'm more than happy to take that action away and update them following the meeting, in case that question comes up at the end, which you might. There are a number of schemes in development as well, and when we say in development, it really means a feasibility stage. So it means at this stage we're considering designs and we're considering options for implementation. They will follow with appropriate consultations with stakeholders, members and members of the public. One of those schemes is a Bilton to Hornbeam Park cycle route. We're looking at options to basically deliver that, understanding if that would work, if there's a suitable route. So very much in that feasibility stage, but the idea is we develop that to the bid ready status again, should funding become available from other funding avenues from the government. And we're also looking at the A59 missing link, which we obviously with 10,000 from the area constituency. I think that's come from the AC Development Fund to fund the feasibility study. We did do a little bit of work last year on that, but we're picking that up in more detail now. We also have the Harrogate Cycle Network development prioritisation, and that's ongoing with some clear progress. And in terms of necessary documentation, obviously there's equalities implications and climate change implications attached to the report appendices. The detail in Appendix A outlines the scheme's progress, budgets, and indicative delivery dates. I think one item just to pick up in terms of those delivery dates, you will note there aren't specific dates on those delivery dates. And the reason for that is, as you can see from the body of the report, there's still some outstanding matters on a number of projects, whether that's consultation, traffic regulation orders, and whilst we, with best guess, we can indicate when we feel they're going to be complete, we don't know exactly when they're going to be complete in terms of any objections that we might receive and how we need to deal with those, which is why it's quite high level in terms of the dates set out there, but nevertheless, certainly some progress to aim for. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Timothy.
Thanks, Chair. I was the member who asked about the cost of the HTIP. So it's odd. It's strange to me that you don't have the numbers in front of you today, because I was sent by a resident a freedom of information request that was made about the cost of the HTIP, which stated that HTIP 1 cost £202,836, and the HTIP 2 cost £256,350 for a total of £459,186. Which, so yeah, so I mean, obviously and I respect that you've got to have time to write up the results for HTIP 2 and all the rest of it. I look forward to seeing it, and I hope it will be considered as we develop new plans for active travel going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison. Oh, sorry, Councillor Schofield, 2 Michaels.
With regards to the TRO consultations, is it possible, because I know it takes you time to get all your feedback and everything, is it all purely done online? I'm just, because the residents of Harlow Hill and St George's, as you're well aware of all consultations that we've had before over the last couple of years, can be quite vociferous, but they're not always in tune to do it online. How are they knowing? How do they know about the consultations? And how are we going to collate all the information?
So in terms of the consultation process, specifically for traffic regulation orders, all the residents affected by the proposal would be letter dropped. So they'd all receive letters. We would collate that, and it would then be presented to our environment exec member and director. So there will be a public report outlining the outcome of that consultation before we can proceed to the traffic regulation order. And of course, the local members will be updated on that progress of any of those traffic regulation orders as well. So.
Councillor Walker.
So I suppose it's just following on from Councillor Timothy's statement earlier. So we've spent £500,000 on consultants and delivered nothing. This was our frustration at the last area committee meeting, that we have all these consultations and nothing happens. So yet again, nothing has happened. We find out we've spent another £500,000 of consultancy money, of taxpayers' money. We've got a report that has expected delivery dates. Half of them don't have dates. I work in project management, and that report would be unacceptable. I would need confidence levels. I would need to understand if it's a realistic target. If the confidence level is low, why is that? What can I put in place to get it to where I need to be, or put it on a risk register? These programs on here, they need to deliver. They need to happen. We're sick of excuses and things not being delivered. It's simply not good enough.
I don't think that language is appropriate to an officer, Chair.
Melissa, did you want to, I mean, you've explained about timescales, but did you want to come back on what progress?
Certainly, I think those costs were linked with the HTIP specifically. So that was just I believe, obviously I'm not leading on that project specifically, which is why I haven't brought those figures. But I understand an FOI has gone out, and that's something that I've asked the other officers for. So once I see that, I'll let you know and just confirm that that is the case in terms of those costs. I've explained in terms of the figures, there's a lot of constraints that we're facing. There's a lot of workload, whilst trying to deliver the active travel improvement schemes, we're trying to deliver the maintenance and the gullies, for example. So there's a lot of different aspects that the teams are looking at. And there's constraints within resources, and there's constraints within the actual delivery of those projects. We do have, as I think I explained last time, we do have an officer full-time in place now within my team, an improvement delivery manager, improvement project delivery manager, to oversee these active travel schemes. And I think you can see, certainly from the last time we were here updating, there's been quite a significant progress on all of those schemes. So we are making good progress, and it has helped to have that additional resource in there. I don't think any officer would wish to put a specific start date on these until we know that we've had satisfactory consultation and we've dealt with necessary objections appropriately. And we're just not in a position to say exactly start date, but we're certainly aiming to address the timescales set out in that report.
Can I invite Councillor Walker to respond, and also to make it clear that obviously it's not.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to do. I was going to reflect on Michael's comment. It's not aimed at you, Melissa, and any particular officer. It's aimed at my frustration of the council. The council is not delivering on things for the residents. I get it's really tough being a council officer. You have to deal with an awful lot, but it's a frustration with North Yorkshire Council not delivering on lots of things. And I think many of us share those frustrations. So I'd like to apologise, Melissa, to you, but this is an issue that I have with North Yorkshire Council. It is not delivering on lots of things.
Councillor Broadbank.
Thanks, Chair. I'm frustrated sometimes with the length of time and the way things are done, talking, consultation, everything, restriction, and it does seem to go on and on and on, and actually there's very little done. Now, I understand that, because obviously we raise this with other councillors and they in other areas, and some of them say they haven't got issues with it. So I'm wondering, is it just a particular issue with staffing or something like that at the Area 6 office in particular? I don't know. I mean, you mentioned we've got new people in place now, Melissa. Is there a fundamental problem with staffing levels in the Area 6 Highways office that needs resolving?
I think the workload in Harrogate and Knaresborough is significant. It's the highest workload across the county in terms of Area 6. And it's the biggest, but I think the expectations in terms of, for example, the active travel schemes, something that it's a programme that other areas don't have. They don't have those asks on them. We are resourced, we do have, in terms of resources, we don't have a full complement at the minute, but we are advertising. But we do have a facility to use consultants. So we do have secondees in the office, for example.
If we don't have a full complement, is that because the jobs are advertised but haven't been filled, or is it just because they've decided they're not going to fill certain jobs?
It's people leave, people move on, and we now need to recruit.
Okay. Councillor Timothy.
Thanks, Chair. In answer to Councillor Schofield earlier, you talked about how we notify people who might be affected by a traffic regulation order. How do we decide which houses to send the letter to? The reason I ask is because there was a recent example, and I should declare an interest at this point as a steward of Trinity Methodist Church. There was a recent example with an ongoing proposal on Trinity Road, which we as a church were only notified about by a member of the public who thought that we should be stakeholders, and we now are sending representatives to those meetings. I guess that's my question, is just how do we decide who to send letters to in that case?
Everybody affected by the scheme would be sent a letter. So it sounds to me that was an error, because if they're in that location, certainly the church should have been notified. But yeah, it sounds to me that was an error, because it should have been everybody in the vicinity of the scheme.
But well, thank you for that. I'm sorry, that was a specific example, but I guess my broader question is how, you're saying everyone is affected by the scheme. How do we decide where the boundary is of who's affected by the scheme?
It's clear. Obviously, every property that's on that, if you're putting yellow lines on a road network on a section of road, every property and business on that section of road will be impacted. Any property on a side road that is clearly going to be, interacting with that network or that change, that improvement is going to be impacted. But at the end of the day, it's an officer making that decision based on their local knowledge. We don't usually get it wrong, but clearly in that example you gave, there was an error.
Okay, Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome Councillor Walker's comments and apologies. So thank you very much for doing that. I think that's right. One thing I would point out is we are the council. So we actually have an influence on our officers and officers' resource, and resource is scarce, whether it's people or finances, and we're aware of that. And that moves me into where I would like to go is I very much appreciate the report that's in front of us. A couple of comments that I would like to see alongside some of the active travel initiatives here, what we expect the impact of that to be. So is it going to take 30,000 cars off the road a year? Is it going to stop this many people, encourage more people to use the bus because there's a bus shelter as opposed to getting wet? That type of thing. Some will be more obvious than others, obviously, but if we've got an assessment, then perhaps we can start to direct and say, we'd rather have this than that. And that then perhaps gives you guidance on how to drive your resources, because we know there's a finite amount of resources available. And then on the other side, some of the initiatives you have here, I just wonder how many alternatives are considered, or if there are quick wins. And here I pick out Victoria Avenue. Which there's an idea of having a cycle track down the middle. Now I've looked at that and I'm not sure, but surely a quick win for Victoria Avenue that would make it much safer is actually just to make that a 20-mile-an-hour zone. And as it's got cars parking down the middle at the moment, I can't imagine that the imposition of a 20-mile-an-hour scheme is going to be that difficult. So is there a way in which we can perhaps look at other ways of making it safe, in this case, for cyclists, and what other quick wins there are? And then just returning to Councillor Walker's point about project management, I appreciate it's difficult, but it's not quite the same. And I think you work for the NHS, so I guess you have put some public sector involvement. But we do have a lot of people that like to have a say. Let's just look at Station Gateway, for example, and how that's changed. Anyway, if you could answer my suggestions, Melissa, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll certainly take those on board. Where we, if something doesn't work in terms of design, we do always try and look at alternatives, but there's some good suggestions there that we'll have a look at. Thank you.
You said the dirty word, Hansel. Nation Gateway. We don't say the word. Councillor Aldred, did you want to ask a question?
It's progressing marvellously. I look forward to the November meeting on that. Yeah, just a quick question and then probably a statement, Melissa. The improvement officer you've referred to, obviously it's quite a recent appointment. Is that officer's work entirely for Harrogate and Knaresborough then, or is it also on other schemes across the county?
At the minute, they're working entirely for Harrogate and Knaresborough because that's where the schemes are.
Yeah, that's what you said, actually.
There is another scheme, I think, in another area that will be commencing very shortly. But like I said, this is, so, in terms of active travel, it's in Harrogate and Knaresborough.
Basically, the active travel schemes that are detailed in the report. Yeah, okay, that's good news, actually. And there has been a little bit more progress, I think, in the last, well, in the terms that the officer has been imposed than there was previously. So that is good. So I suppose I've got a couple of comments. I do share Councillor Walker's frustration, and Councillor Broadbank mentioned he was frustrated. I think we all are, to be honest. I think at the very first area committee meeting, I kind of quizzed you on some of these projects, and to be frank, they haven't moved on since then, and that's 2 years ago. We've got somebody in place. I mean, that figure we spent on consultants is frightening. I accept why you have to do that, but it's still a staggering figure, and it is public money at the end of the day. We just seem to consult. I mean, the road safety audit for the Bilton Crossway scheme, it's been going on for 2 years, and now we've got that road safety audit, and now it's come back, and now we have to change the design. Can we not do this, some of these things, a little bit less informally? Sorry, a little bit less formally, so more informally. I mean, the road safety audit people work for the council. You guys work for the council. You'd have thought, you know, some conversations could take place, and we're thinking of doing this. What do you think might be the thing? And then I accept we've got to consult to some extent, but we just seem to go on. And Mrs. Margolis's letter concentrates on delivery. There's no delivery. It's unfortunate we changed the constitution, and that could not have been read out, and the response had been read out. I don't know if our friends from Harrogate Cycle Action were aware of that. I mean, it's unfortunate that even if she couldn't have come, somebody else from that organisation could have come. I don't know if that gets pointed out to people when they say they can't come, Edward, because there's a certain amount of, well, there's a lot of frustration in that as well. I'm not going to, you know, I was a council officer for 23 years. I know what it's like, Melissa, you know, so I have every sympathy with you guys, but we just don't seem to move on, and people want these schemes. There was the survey in 2019, which says we don't want a ring road, we want active travel, we want better ways of going around the town, which relies on us not using the car. And here we are in 2024, and all we've had really is the Otley Road scheme, which I think everybody accepts is not the best scheme in the world. Although, to be fair to the cycling lobby, they were involved in devising that, I think. So there's a certain amount of finger pointing that could be made there as well if we are finger pointing. I just hope we're not sitting here in a year's time and looking at a similar report when the deadlines are moved yet again. And I think of the money we had for pump priming economy and transport in Harrogate, the schemes we've identified there, a lot of it went into active travel. So we as councillors, to come back to Paul's point, we are the council, and we as councillors believe in those schemes, and we want those delivering. And I think, you know, if only we can emphasise the need looking at as priority schemes, really. I know you've got other things on your plate as well, but we as the representatives of the people of Harrogate and Knaresborough are listening to them constantly. We're looking at those surveys, we're looking at feedback. They are important, and we need to see something on the ground sooner rather than later. Thank you for coming, because you know what you're going to get when you come.
Councillor Aldred, if you want to let Melissa answer, because she's going to have forgotten what the question is.
No, it wasn't a question, it was a statement.
Yeah, but if I could just
Of course you could.
make a point. I do understand the concerns in terms of specific dates in Appendix A. However, I would hope that you are reassured by the fact that at least 5 of those have expected delivery dates of Q4 in 24, which means that we are aiming to get at least 5 of those schemes delivered by the end of the financial year, which is a significant, certainly a positive outcome, and that's what we're aiming for. So I think I just ask you to reflect on that and take that positive if we can, because a lot of work has gone in to get them to that point where we feel we can deliver them by the end of the financial year.
Okay, Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. Just going to repeat again that I do share the concerns in the public statement about the lack of implemented active travel, but also to pick up on Paul's point about quick wins. I think this is really important, but an example of my frustration is with a quick win. In Knaresborough, we feel we need to tackle the congestion in order to promote active travel, to make that easier for residents, and part of that is taking cars off our high street. About 6 or 7 years ago, we met for a walk around with one of our business owners, and we presented a quick win at the time, which was signage to our York Place car park, to try and get cars to park there before driving into the centre, driving around, trying to find a parking space, adding to the pollution. There was an QMA site at the time. So this was 6, 7 years ago. Continued to pursue it. We raised it, Matt and myself raised it at our first strategic meeting when elected as North Yorkshire councillors. As a quick win, I think the cost of it could probably be recovered by the parking revenue from the increased parking there, because it's underutilised. As our head of parking services has commented, it is an underutilised car park. It's now being picked up by Chamber of Trade. One resident who is actually here today made the really useful, I think, suggestion that it be renamed Town Centre Parking to give different perspective to the close proximity to the town centre. This is a quick win that could have a big impact in taking cars away from our town centre. It's signage, and I suggested it years ago and it's still not being implemented. I'd be happy to put some of my locality budget towards.
You're funding your own now.
Yeah, exactly. But I just feel that it would have an impact, and I would like to see some things like this. And I agree with Paul, it's a conversation we could have about other quick wins that as councillors that know our communities and they're in touch with residents that understand the communities. I think there's a lot that could be grasp from that, but they're not being implemented, which I think is leading to this frustration. So I have complete sympathy from Gia Margolis, and I echo her concerns.
Okay, Councillor Harrison, did you want?
Thank you. I just wanted to make the point, Councillor Boback, you asked if Area 6 was any different, and Melissa gave a good point that lots of other areas don't have these kind of schemes. And then Councillor Aldred, you made a really interesting point about the consultation we did on the congestion survey, or relief road. Huge numbers of people said we don't want a relief road, and said that we want active travel. So the team go away, find money, produce active travel schemes, and then a huge number of people say we don't want active travel. We don't like this active travel. We like something else active travel, but really they don't want active travel at all. So we send the officers on a doom loop of reworking schemes, reconsultation. We don't like that. Can you have another look at this? And so half the time I feel like we set up the officer team to fail in that respect. We did it at the last meeting when the 20-mile-an-hour schemes, we said, oh, we want to do a survey on extending the schemes before we'd even done the schemes that we said we might look at doing, and then we're complaining that the report hasn't come back quick enough. We're guilty of it. Today we've avoided that. It's not a travel scheme, but when we were talking about the Knaresborough market, we restricted our comments to saying just make sure you do this, please. So I just think it is complex in Harrogate. Doing anything in Harrogate and Knaresborough is hard, and as a result, this is the kind of challenge that we set the officers that they gamely try and overcome, but sometimes not to everyone's expectations. But then, whose fault is that?
I think in response, Councillor Harrison, I would say I understand the point that you're raising. I think specifically on the 20 miles per hour, we did specify that we didn't want anything to hold up the implementation of the scheme that had already been set out, and that actually in parallel we just wanted to explore further so that we could roll out potentially further benefits. So yeah, but I do understand what you're saying, that sometimes the mileposts do move, and sometimes residents will say they want one thing and then change their minds.
On the consultation, that could be because some people who don't respond to the first consultation, when they see the result of that first consultation, they then start responding. So it gets a bit confusing. But I mean, the one you're talking about was overwhelming. 15,500 or something, wasn't it? Response. 77%. I mean, that's overwhelming. You can't argue about that. Things on the other schemes, you get 4 or 5% response. So yeah, so that was overwhelming, and that was something that we really had to get on with.
Okay, has everybody said everything they want to say on this matter? We move on. Thank you very much, Melissa, for taking the time to come. Thank you. So if I can move us on to agenda item 9, which is the appointment to outside bodies. Edward, can I hand over to you for this, please?
Yes, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to update members on the position regarding council appointment to outside bodies in the Harrogate and Knaresborough area. And hopefully, yes, I've also been joined by Chris Phillipson, who's going to be able to answer any specific questions as well that arise. But just to briefly summarise the report, obviously, as you're all aware, the 8 predecessor councils made a series of appointments to outside bodies, and by default in April 2023, when LGR took effect, North Yorkshire Council inherited all of those appointments. In request to a response from the committee, this report's been prepared to summarise the process that was undertaken in 2023 to review those appointments and reduce them to a smaller number, and also at the same time check they're aligned with the council's priorities. So that process is set out fully in section 3 of the report, and then section 4 shows you the current status of outside bodies in the Harrogate and Knaresborough area to which the council still appoints members. So that information is available there in the report. And at 4.2, it's also highlighted the section in the Constitution which covers outside bodies. So you can look at that. Obviously, if there are any further updates to that, you can review them there. But yes, that's the report. And so just if there's any specific questions between myself and Chris, hopefully we're able to answer anything there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lacey, did you have a question?
Thank you very much for the report. Very, very clear on the consequence of a lot of work and LGR, etc. I suppose my comment is Councillor Gibbs, when you shake the sack and everything falls out, you're sort of left with representation. And I just want to know whether you feel overburdened by being left with 3 representatives. And I've no intention of necessarily wresting them from you. It's simply an observation. And are you satisfied with that position?
I am. I'm not 100% certain how I ended up in this position. I might have not been in the room at the time, and was volunteered for several things. But joking aside, I think there's a slight mistake in the report, is in the sense that I appear to be 2 things for the same thing. It's actually only 1 thing, and I believe it should only be 1 thing. I think we only appoint as a trustee. Certainly in the days of Harrogate Borough Council, that's how it works. So the 3rd one down, where I'm just appointed to the body, I think actually just shouldn't be there at all. And I don't think I was appointed to that body by this group. I believe I was only appointed by the executive to the trustee board, and the reason it's the executive is it is as a trustee, which you all know what trustees do. Obviously, if you chop and change trustees, it affects their governance and everything like that. It's not a simple case of who wants it at the time. So it was done for a period of time between the date I was appointed and the end of this council term, which is in 2027. So yes, I do that, and then the local fund is not directly linked, but those of you in the room that, well, Philip, you're on the local fund as well, aren't you, with your Starbeck or Harry Bolland hat on, I think. They're quite. There's an obvious link there, and again, back in the days of Harrogate Borough Council, they went together. So, but yes, I'm
simply wanted to give you the opportunity to comment. Thank you, Councillor Gibbs.
Councillor Timothy.
Thank you, Chair. Just off of what Councillor Gibbs has just said, I just have a quick question for Edward and Christine. Does this mean that, in theory, we could appoint someone else to Harrogate and District Community Action in a non-trustee capacity, or is this just a mistake on the report?
I believe that's just an error, and on my part, including it twice, it is just the 1 line that it should be on there. So apologies for that, and we'll make a correction to it as well.
Councillor Aldred.
I don't think you should blame yourself, Edward, actually, because I think we did actually appoint in the meeting we did all the appointments. But Christine sent a very useful email this morning, because I think Anne Duncan was querying it or provided some evidence. So I mean, maybe you could share that, Christine, with other members, because it does clarify it to some extent. Yeah, I asked for this to be put on the agenda because I wasn't sure of some of these appointments where they're still continuing. I think the report is very good and very useful, and does actually clarify a number of those issues. There are a couple of little minor ones, like Fairfax Community Centre. I still actually officially, I think I'm a secretary of the management board, but it hasn't met for 4 years. There's it hasn't been wound up. So, and there's a sum of money in the bank account somewhere that should be for the benefit of the citizens of Fairfax. So perhaps me and you have to have a little conversation about that. But that does need. It's not a lot. It does need needs kind of winding up. And the Starbuck Community Fund we do appoint to, because I'm on it, and we did the grants the other week. So when it says in the report we don't appoint, we clearly do appoint to that. Yeah. And that's obviously it's not Councillor Marsh anymore because she's no longer a councillor. So there's little things which I think we've cleared up in our email correspondence, Christine. So I'm not going to kind of bore the rest of this lot. The only thing when I've got a bit of an issue still with is the Harrogate International Festivals, where I know Councillor Myers goes. I was the appointee from here. I've never been. And I think the festival were very keen to invite him to come because he's in effect he's the cabinet member for culture, isn't he? So they wanted him instead of somebody on this committee. Now I would consider that an executive appointment and not an invitee, as it were. But I suppose it's semantics, and I suppose it's if he's happy enough to go and they're happy enough to have him. I suppose it's been a bit pedantic, really. The other one I just wanted to make a statement on is I have been invited to become a trustee on the Harrogate the White Rose Theatre Trust. Sorry, but that is independent of this committee. It's kind of Mike's also on it, and well, it's not anymore. That's the thing. Because I don't think we appoint to that. So there may be others in the room, which is why I wanted it on the committee agenda, actually, because my understanding is after whenever we changed the constitution, it was November, wasn't it, last year? If we continue going on those committees and groups we were appointed to in June 23, we are no longer appointed to. We go by invitation because we choose to go, basically. And that would be the case of you with the trust, I think.
So with the White Rose, they're having quite a bit of a reshuffle and a restructure. So I'm getting the feeling that they won't want us on there because they're going to ask for CVs. They're going to go down a rigorous process of choosing the trustees, and they are very wary of the council. So I have a feeling from my correspondence that, it's not a position they want any of us to have. We've been invited by another lady who is very keen to have us.
Maybe we need a conversation out of this room. But yeah, that was one of the reasons for putting it on the agenda. But these individual things can be sorted, can't they? So thank you for the report, Christy.
If it's useful, I can clear up those points with and send that email around so everyone's aware of it as well, just because I know that while those emails were going around, some of those points were cleared up.
Thank you. Christine, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to reiterate, really, in terms of the outside body review in total. It really was the primary objective was to reduce the workload on members because there were, when we amalgamated, 170 plus outside bodies. So that was the driving factor in terms of doing that review. But it was always made clear from the start that should members want to still remain on those boards in their own individual capacity, that is absolutely fine and they can do that. And then obviously we will review again, probably post May 27. And in terms of the exec appointments, that Harrogate International Festival Board, there are a number of outside bodies that do invite exec members just to their meetings as a representative, but not necessarily appointed. In terms of an exec appointment to that, that's never been the case because it wasn't an executive appointment. It was always through the area constituency committee, and that would require a change to the constitution to change that. But we can, if we want to look at appointing through the area committee again, we can do that if that's what members decide that they would prefer to do.
Just to clarify, I think it was a executive appointment, if you like, in HBC days.
Absolutely, yes.
Because it went with the cabinet member responsibility, who was Councillor Lumley in those days, and he was responsible for signing up the grant they got, and they were very clear they wanted that to continue. the
Yes.
festival themselves, which is why we were keen to get Councillor Myers on there. And Councillor Myers is keen to go, so that's fine. And it's his brief. It obviously was an executive appointment then, and obviously we're now under a different regime, aren't we? So it's changed,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there are a number of similarities like that, Councillor Aldred, as well, yes.
Okay. If nobody's got any other questions, then thank you very much, Christine. And Edward, if you can forward that correspondence so that everybody gets that information, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Okay, so that brings us on to item agenda 10, which is the work programme.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So this is the standard work programme report, which you'll all have seen. I won't dwell too much on it. It's just to ask you to consider the work programme, make any amendments or additions. Also, you'll notice the format has changed slightly. We're trying to include summaries and notes of the working group meetings that take place for the benefit of not just other members who aren't attending, but also for the members of the public, so they can monitor the progress of the work that those working groups are doing, and also other activities that are taking place that could be reflected in their informal meetings and that sort of thing. So there is a record of that, and we can track the progress of other issues that the committee's tackling outside of the meetings as well, and that's available for the public too. The only points to note, there has been one minor update since publication. The Station Gateway Working Group has now agreed a meeting on the 4th of November. So there will be an update to the next committee on the 28th with the results of that. And also to note that it's been proposed that the Water Quality Working Group, which hasn't met, for that to be that remit of that working group to be folded into the climate change working group, because there is a considerable amount of overlap on the work there. And I've spoken to Councillor Gosling and Councillor Haslam on that. So if you're happy to note that change, that can go ahead. And of course, we always have the option at a later date, if a significant stream of work, no pun intended, arises, then we can always look to set up another working group, either permanently or on a temporary basis. So yeah, that's if there's any comments or additions to make, I'm happy to make those now.
Yeah, Councillor Gosling.
With the future work programme, I think at the last committee meeting I asked, and I think there was agreement that the Harrogate Youth Council could be invited, and that it might be teamed up with, and I'm trying to find the name of the consultation, but there's a consultation that goes out to children and young people that one of our North Yorkshire officers could feed back on in the new year on the results of it. And we agreed that the two things married well together and could be put on a future agenda.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll follow up with you after the meet as well, just to clarify that name and make sure, yeah, that gets up. But happy to add that.
Councillor Lacey.
There is a short report on the voluntary community sector, which has met very helpfully with the Stronger Communities team, particularly around the establishment of the anchor organisation for Harrogate. I won't go into the detail, it's there, and we've been engaged in that process very effectively. What I'd like to mention, largely Edward, for your notice, is that we would normally receive a report from Stronger Communities. I think it's marked down as March. It may well be that alongside that, we will have undertaken as a working group, and I need to consult with the members, just a short listening exercise with the VCSE across Harrogate, facilitated by HEDCA, something that I'm just exploring the possibility of. So that might complement, but in terms of agenda time, they need to be considered in March. Thank you.
With regards to the suggestion about moving, joining together the two working groups, and has there been have we got a report, Paul, from when was the climate change working group? When did it last meet?
Probably about 6 months ago, because we've had a couple of elections in between, so there has been some other business going on. But in terms of, which is why I passed it to Ed, in actual fact, although the Climate Change Committee has not met formally, Chris and I turned up to discuss the Victoria Avenue cycle proposal, which to my mind is a climate type issue. And I'm trying to think, what was the other one I mentioned to you? And Starbeck Crossing, again, they are climate related issues. So although the committee technically didn't meet, we are actively getting involved with other things that the climate does. So I would just leave it at, I can just leave it as that. At the moment, there are a number of different issues that we should meet to discuss. And I can discuss that with Hannah as to what we might put on the agenda. But I'm guessing the latest situation on as a result of the change in government and their policies, I think would actually have an impact on perhaps what we want to look at.
Okay. Edward, do you mind sending out then the list of who is in the combined group? Because I don't know whether there's repetition of people or whether it might be too many people now for one working group. So perhaps if you do that and we can do that over email, then just formalise who's in that group.
And I'll make sure that the next working group update will have an updated list of memberships as well.
Great. Has anybody else got anything that they would like to add to the programme? Councillor Aldred.
Yeah, in the good old days of HBC, pause for laughter, we did have overview and scrutiny once a month, and we had a phenomenal amount of visits to that committee by the police, probably once a quarter in some guise or other. Sometimes we looked at Harrogate Town Centre, sometimes we looked at Harrogate Outer, and then we had chief constables and commissioners as well coming to see us. I don't think in the 2 years since we've been meeting, this committee has had a chance to question the local police. And I think it was really useful in that environment to do it. I know North Yorkshire works different. There is a police and crime panel, but there was in those days as well. So I'd like to request we have at least one meeting a year where there's an invitation to the local, not national, regional. I'm not particularly interested in the mayor, the deputy mayor coming, or indeed the chief constable, because that's county-wide and there's other procedures for that. But I think we as a Harrogate and Knaresborough committee should have the opportunity to quiz the local police inspectorates and actually look at some figures coming back as well of crime statistics locally. I mean, one of my colleagues pointed out recently that our colleagues in Harrogate Outer do actually get a newsletter from the police. Is it quarterly? Yeah, we as town centre councillors don't have that, I don't think, and I think we're missing out. So I have sent an email requesting that, but I think one opportunity for face-to-face discussion a year is probably not, and they could both come, couldn't they? We could have an inspector for Harrogate Town and the inspector for Harrogate Outer in the same meeting. So can I request that, please?
You can. Councillor Mann, I don't know if you want to come in at this point.
I'd just like to very briefly second Councillor Aldred's suggestion. I think it's an excellent one. I think it's something that we could all benefit from, and it just helps the accountability and transparency agenda, and we can feed information back to our residents from that. So yes, I fully support the suggestion.
So just, I'm happy to take that on board and make that a standing item. It might be worth pointing out the 20th of November meeting. We are expecting an update from the Community Safety and CCTV team, and that will include a representative from North Yorkshire Police. I don't know who that will be, so that's something I will follow up and see if we can get that local input as well. I imagine that's the intention, but with your steer there, I'll engage with them in advance of the meeting to make sure we're getting the right person along. I'll also ask about the crime statistics, because I remember from my own Richmondshire days, we used to have that same information that went out. So it is out there. I'll track that down and see if we can make that a regular update if possible to make sure everyone's got access to the same information.
Councillor Harrison.
I was just I was just going to point out that November meeting, so perhaps that is it, assuming that it covers what you want to cover, that's probably the opportunity.
Okay, anybody else have anything for the work programme? Nope. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. And we will reconvene on the 28th of November. All right. Thank you.